Radio, where freedomizers freedomize freedom. It's feline fury time.
The way somebody looks does not give anybody the right or the authority to violate another human being. Unfortunately, there are people who have had loved ones who have been murdered, and the indoctrination runs so deep about the need to obey our masters that when one of these masters kills a loved one, they will go as far as to make excuses.
Cook's husband doesn't understand why an officer would shoot his unarmed wife.
Personally, I think it may be an overreaction, maybe excessive force, but I can only surmise that.
After how appalling I felt that it was that this happened to this Sunday school teacher that didn't have a weapon, that she was shot 6 times, I knew it was bound to hit Maine, America, because it's been happening in the African-American community all the time.
The violence of statism knows no boundaries. It's colorblind, it's gender blind, it's even handicap blind, it's age blind. It doesn't matter.
Cops are the only people in society that have permission to go around killing unarmed people preemptively because they're scared of them, because of officer safety. No other profession in our nation, including our soldiers that fight overseas, are allowed to go around killing civilians because they're scared of them. We have postmen who go to houses every single day and get bips all the time who don't go around shooting dogs. The cops in this country are cowards. They shoot people who are innocent because they're afraid of them, or at least they say that. They shoot dogs that are innocent because they are afraid of them all the time. It's disgusting. And very few cops actually fight real crime, because very few cops are willing to go out after the criminal cops who are destroying people's lives. So I want to stop hearing the refrain that cops are heroes, and I want to hear the refrain from most people in society that cops are cowards.
It's feline fury time.
Hello, freedomizers and friends. I'm sorry about that delay, everybody. My Skype wasn't working, and I had to go to Plan B, which was get onto my cell phone. Thank you all for tuning in. You're listening to TigerLily. My name is Lily Gonzalez. This is TigerLily's Freedom Roar. That's my nickname. Most of the friends know me by that name. The call-in number is 347-324-3704. So feel free to call in, and I'll be happy to get you on the radio show if at all possible. Understanding that I'm still a rookie at this radio business. I've been doing this for about a year, but I took 4 months off because the stuff that I was uncovering was more than my psyche could bear, quite frankly. I have interviewed so many people in the first few months that I started being a show host, things that were just horrific. A mother by the name of Teresa Smith, whose son was shot and murdered by Anaheim cops, and the way the media distorts the information, and the way that it's a combination of mainstream media, and it's also the fact that they go to the cops to get their side of the story. And so the information is so tainted by the time people hear it that it's just disgraceful. And the injustices, I can't hardly stand to know the kind of injustices that are happening in this so-called land of the free, home of the brave. This is just outrageous. One of my biggest heroes for 2012 has got to be Antonio Buehler. And he was the one who, in the introduction, said, "Cops are cowards." The reason that I put him on my introduction is because he's no ordinary Joe Blow that's been, that has some kind of an axe to grind because he doesn't want to follow the status quo or be law-abiding or anything like that. No, this is a West Point graduate. Some time overseas. He's got a Bronze Star. He's got a master's. He's an activist out of Austin, and for him to say that cops are cowards, let me tell you, it's because he has been there in the trenches. In fact, in Austin and probably around the country, stay put, ladies and gentlemen, because there's going to be roadblocks all over the country by our status system, by the cops that are going to be getting paid overtime, double time, triple time, whatever it takes, our tax dollar going to feed these parasites that are going to be putting roadblocks there to check people to make sure that they're not drunk. And while I don't advocate people driving drunk, it is an established fact that cops can catch 4 times more criminals, more drunks by doing their job, by getting out there and actually patrolling the streets, as opposed to making these gigantic, tyrannical, totalitarian, Nazi-like camps, blocking the road so that they can check everybody. And people, and anybody who dares to even resist a little bit. I've got a friend. My friend name is David Stillwell. About a year ago, maybe a year and a half, it was Super Bowl night. It was his birthday as well. He went to a DUI checkpoint as an activist, and he tried to roll down, he rolled down his window. He says, TigerLily, I rolled it down about enough to get a beer can through it. And the woman cop said, roll your window all the way down. And he told the cop, she was a state trooper, told her, why? I can hear you just fine. And instantly she took out her taser and she said, get out of the truck, you're under arrest. And so what he did was take the keys out of his truck, and she says, why did you take your keys out of your truck? And he said, because it's unlawful to leave the keys in the car, in the truck. And when she realized who he was, according to my friend, and I've never caught him in a lie, he tells me that she looked like she was going to vomit, because she realized this was David Stillwell, the person who had been defending me and was at my side when I logged a formal complaint against her for the brutal treatment that she gave me at the side of a road for daring to wear a legal, albeit a controversial helmet while riding a motorcycle. That was the day that changed my entire life, my entire view of cops. I used to think, oh yes, these are our heroes, yada, yada, yada. No, these are not heroic people. These are animals. I had Antonio Bueller on my radio show about a couple of weeks ago, and that's how I got those clips of what he was saying. It's on my radio show. He was on the 7th, I believe, of December. So if you want to check out the archive, and I've also got him, I podcasted the entire conversation. And I posted that I was going to be doing a little bit of a tribute to Antonio on this radio show, because New Year's Day will be the 1-year anniversary of his experience. Now, what happened to Antonio, if you didn't hear the other radio show where my interview of him, is that on New Year's Day, it was like just past midnight, he was a designated driver, and he actually witnessed some Austin Police Department officers brutalizing a woman. They had her handcuffed. They were lifting her up by the handcuffs, and that is a very painful maneuver. She's screaming, and then Antonio took pictures, and for taking those pictures, he was arrested by some vile cops. And that day, he thought that he was his life was going to change for the worse. Here he had an excellent background. He had never been in trouble with the cops, but this cop lied and said that Antonio spit at him. And what a liar. And thank goodness Antonio had the wherewithal, once he got out of jail, because he was in a holding tank arrested for obstruction. Once he got out, he put on Facebook and on Craigslist, he was asking for anybody to step forward who had seen that whole thing. And thankfully, somebody did come through. So he is one of my biggest heroes for 2012. And what he has done in just a year is incredible. He's received a prestigious award out there in Austin for his cop accountability activism that he's done. He started a movement called Peaceful Streets project. And he on his Facebook group, he's got approaching 2,000 subscribers, and Lord knows I'm one of those subscribers, and the man is a machine. He's exposing cops all over the place with a special emphasis in his neck of the woods, which is Austin, Texas. Now, when I posted that I was going to be featuring Antonio, one of the people on his Facebook group said this, because she heard a little clipping that I did about Antonio and how he describes cops being cowards, because cops are the only profession, he says, that can literally kill people and use fear as an excuse, otherwise known as officer safety. And the Supreme Court has ruled with the cops and said the cops have no obligation to serve and protect. They have no duty to do that. So why the hell do we need them in the first place then? So the person on Antonio's Facebook group wrote this. When you said cops kill dogs and made the comment about postmen, that jumped out at me. I've been in the pizza business for 23 years. Dogs have always been a problem for pizza delivery people. I have taken thousands of deliveries and encountered many dogs. We are holding food. I've been barked at, jumped on, and even knocked down by dogs. But I've never been killed by a dog, and I don't know a single pizza delivery person that has killed a dog. We proudly protect and serve the pizza to our customer. I didn't get permission to disclose who this person is, so I'll keep her name out of it. If you do want to join, increase Antonio's Facebook group and be part of it, you're going to be absolutely amazed. I mean, all you have to do is look at one post a day from him. And he posts about a dozen a day is what I'm thinking his average is. And if after seeing maybe half a dozen of the posts that he puts on there, if you still think that the profession of law enforcement is virtuous and heroic, then give me your address so I can go kiss your foot, because it ain't going to happen. Now, what I want to do now is one of the things that he posted was roadside rape in Austin. I think it's in the Austin area. I know it's in Texas. And without further ado, this is a 4-minute clip. You are not going to believe this. And when we go to the bottom of the hour, I'm going to go to a short commercial break. And when we come back, I'm going to talk about guns, because there's no such thing as gun control, only people control. That's what my friend David Stilwell said. And I want to talk about this craziness about guns. There's no such thing. We either live in a free society and can have guns, or we don't. Because if we don't have guns, who the hell is going to enforce the no gun laws? People with guns. So how ridiculous and how retarded is it for these mainstream media liberals to want to take away guns from law-abiding citizens in the name of saving a few people from deranged people who have guns and who are always going to have guns and who are always going to find a way to do evil. When you think of 9/11, it wasn't guns that killed the 2,000 people during 9/11. It was just sheer evil. It was the use of planes. And had there been law-abiding concealed carriers in that one, or open carriers, or what have you, there would have not been a 9/11, because they would have had to, these evil people would have had to find another way to decimate us. And there will always be evil people who find ways to kill us. And to call for gun control, well, I'll get to that at the bottom of the hour. In the meantime, listen to this horrific scene that took place in Austin. And the voice you're going to hear, the male voice, is Antonio.
Never been pulled over, never searched like this. I was like totally violated over there a few minutes ago. I had a finger in my ass and a finger in my coochie, and this is so embarrassing to me.
Go have a seat in the car. I'll be up there with your warnings, okay?
Okay.
The reason I'm out here is because of the recent video that we've seen where a DPS, a state trooper, is essentially raping 2 women under the guise of the war on drugs.
Why do you think that the APD has gotten to this level of violence?
I think that it's something that's inherent in the institution. The police force, it was originally created to keep slaves in line and to kill Indians and whatnot, and the fact of the matter is that it's always been a very violent, unjust institution. And the big difference today, as opposed to years past, is that we have a lot of video. And it's amazing that this video on these two DPS troopers came out, because usually they cover up their crimes. But as more and more people get cameras and more people start filming it, more and more people will start to see the abuse of these police, and then hopefully people will start to stand up and finally demand that there's some accountability and that these criminal cops are arrested. Cops shouldn't get more leeway. There shouldn't be a lower standard for cops, and being a cop shouldn't be an extenuating circumstance. It should be an aggravating circumstance when they commit a crime.
DPS has committed an offense that we believe is widespread throughout law enforcement, roadside rape, where they conducted a body cavity search along the roadside on two women, and those women are standing up courageously to fight back and bring into light a practice that is all too common, not just the body cavity searches on the roadside, which are unlawful, but these fishing expeditions when officers statewide, nationwide, pull over people thinking they might have something on them, find nothing, and continue to dig and dig and dig, searching for probable cause after they've already decided that they have probable cause, and in fact fabricating evidence in many cases. In this case, these women were accused of tossing a cigarette out the window, which led him to believe they were pot smokers, which led him to use the all too common mantra that he smelled pot smoke. And that proceeded to search them, had a female trooper come out, put her hands down their pants, up their private parts, and to look for what? A joint? Is that in the interest of public safety? This is ridiculous. And when they couldn't find that, then they turned their attention to thinking they were driving while intoxicated on alcohol. They had no idea. There was nothing going on here, and they merely harassed. And again, this is just indicative of practices statewide, nationwide, and DPS was just caught on tape doing it. And doing it like it was done every day, no questions asked. They were trained to do so. We need Steve McGraw to discipline troopers system-wide for this practice. He needs to change policy, and if he doesn't do that, he needs to resign. He needs to go.
Can't pull that by the dash next time you get stopped. Reach for the celly if you want to shoot a cop. On the public sidewalk, you can take what you see. Or film from your window with the view of the street. Neighborhood crime watch, we police the police. They can't arrest the whole community because the streets clock. These cops occupying blocks, harassing the homeless with batons and pulling blocks. They stop lawful protests and let off shots. Abuse prostitutes and misuse power they got. In memory of the victims who were never forgot. We gotta exercise our right to shed light in the dark. There is an army on the march, it doesn't want you to watch. You got a weapon in your pocket, whether you know it or not. We the people are the only real media we got. Let's protect one another from the fucking goon squad. Fascism's coming to the USA. Hey yo, Sage, I got something to say. Film the police. Film the police.
Sorry about the rap. I can't stand rap, and if any of you guys that are listening can't stand it, then sorry about that, but it is getting the message out that you've got to videotape, you've got to film the police. This is the only way we are going to be able to raise any kind of an awareness about the horrific state of tyranny that we have, the totalitarianism that has become the United States of America. And for those of my friends who still think that we're in the land of the free, home of the brave, and if you even think that our military are out there overseas trying to protect our liberties, get real. Use a little bit of critical thinking, my friends. And for those of you who think that we can, that the way to freedom, the way to liberty is to go back to the Constitution, get real again. This is what we've got here is the Titanic. We're down at the bottom of the ocean, and to think that we can bring the Titanic back up and put a drop of Gorilla Glue and have the United States continue to be what it used to be, that's unrealistic. Consider that, yes, we are the biggest world power, and how many innocent lives have we been killing? How many innocent people, families? What our government is doing abroad, not only to us, I mean abroad too, we should care. We really should care, because it's just a matter of time before one of your loved ones is going to be bitten in the ass by one of these statist pigs that go around in costumes, wearing a badge and a gun, feeling that they are all high and mighty and able to just to victimize anybody that they want because they can. They can, they get away with it. They even get paid time off because of these unions who protect them. It's just disgusting, ladies and gentlemen. So, since we're at the bottom of the, getting close to the bottom of the hour, I do want to share that one of my goals for 2013 is to highlight some of the heroic voices that I met in 2012. Some of the heroic voices are people like Travis Barrick, who's a lawyer. He has been doing a lot of work to bring a voice to some of the inmates that we have in the United States of America. A lot of people think inmates, who cares about them? There's homeless people, there's children that are dying, there's poverty, this and that. But when you consider that in the United States of America, we have more people in prison per capita than any other nation on the planet, and that includes communist China and former communist Russia combined, we have a crisis. When you consider that 4/5 of the people in our prisons got there for non-crimes, for things such as having vegetation, for having marijuana in their pockets, for non-violent things that didn't hurt anybody, whether it's prostitution, whether it's gambling, whether it's tax evasion, who the heck was harmed? So Travis Barrick, he's one of my heroes. He's doing some great work. I have a special soft spot in my heart for people in prison, because I have a brother in prison who spent some hard time with O.J. Simpson, and I think he's not a good boy, let me tell you, but I think that a lot of why he is where he is, and he probably is one of the people who does deserve to be behind bars, but it has so much to do with child violence. And these Christian Bible thumpers who talk about God says that you need to discipline your children, spare the rod and spoil the child, that is nonsense. How is it moral if you see your kid hitting another kid? How is it moral for you to hit that kid, your kid, to teach them that it's not okay to hit? Do you not see the double standard? And in the case of my brother, my mother beat the crap out of him. She used to literally, she would tie him to a chair, get a tree branch out, and she would beat the devil out of him. At least that's what she thought that she was doing. She thought she was beating the devil out of him. May both of my parents rest in peace. My brother, who is not in prison, was reminiscing with me. He says, I will never forget the time that Dad hit you. And I said, I've kind of suppressed that, but I do remember I was bouncing a ball in the porch in Gary, Indiana, where I lived, and my father came up to me. We had company, and he said, stop bouncing the ball. And then he made the mistake of saying, because I don't want you to damage anything. And I said to him, Papi, I'm going to be careful. Don't worry, I won't damage anything. So I had no clue that he was so pissed off at me that I dared defy him in front of company. I had no clue until after the company left that he picked me up and he threw me against the wall. I landed in bed and he beat the crap out of me. With his hands, a belt, I don't even remember what it was. I just do remember feeling that horrific sense of humiliation, of defeat, of my father, the master, dominating over me. But what is even more telling is the fact that my brother said to me, I can't believe, I remember Mom watching Dad hit you, and she did nothing. And the reason she did nothing is for the same reason that Billy Graham's mother did nothing when Billy Graham's father was beating the shit out of him. And that reason was because she felt as though it was God telling her not to keep her husband, the master of the family, from disciplining her child. She felt virtuous that she was able to overcome that human maternalistic desire to want to protect her child. She felt virtuous for that. Ladies and gentlemen, we got to stop that. How is it virtuous to beat a child? How is it virtuous to even hit him? How is it virtuous to even do things like threaten abandonment? Oh, okay, well, if you don't want to do that, well, if you don't want to live under my roof, then you can just live somewhere else and you got to abide by my laws. No, that has to stop. Because as long as we're training our children to respect us, or we're imposing respect on our children by force, whether it's violent force at the stick, or whether it's psychological force by threats of abandonment, by distraction or whatever, that is going to set up our children for contradictions, and that's going to set them up for becoming compliant little sheeples as we send them off to get indoctrinated into these public schools. So that risking their livelihood, further risking them, further damaging them, because you've got bullies there, you've got teachers that are bullies, students that are bullies, you've got germs, you've got crazed killers going in there, as evidenced by the most recent horrific shooting in Connecticut. That's outrageous. So the other, I talked about Travis Barrett. The other person, of course, Antonio Buehler and Bill Bubert, the founder of ZeroGov.com. There's various members of Bikers of Lesser Tolerance that are heroic in my view. Tim Farrell is an activist out of Las Vegas. He's got over, I don't know how many, he's probably approaching 1 million hits on his YouTube channel, because he exposes the contradictions, the hypocrisy, and the baloney that is our state system, our statist system, the cops at these DUI checkpoints. Carlos Miller, the founder of Photography is Not a Crime. Bill Scott, he is the father, the surviving father of his son, another West Point graduate, was murdered by the Gestapo Gillespie in Las Vegas, and they got away with it. Bill Scott is the author of The Permit. He is the father. This is how he is fighting back. He speaks on radio shows like mine, and he's got a Facebook group in which he memorializes his son. He's another powerhouse. Teresa Smith, the mother of the young man that was murdered by Anaheim cops, he's been gone for over a year, and she goes in front of the police station every Sunday with a sign out there wanting accountability. Marc Stevens is another person who is the author of Adventures in Legal Land. And of course, my best friend in the whole world, except for my husband, of course, is David Stilwell, founder of GuerrillaLawfare.com. Lord have mercy. I'm going to go to commercial break, and I do see that there's a caller that with his hands up. So during the commercial break, I'll scream. And in the meantime, this is TigerLily. You're listening to TigerLily's Freedom Roar on FreedomizerRadio.com.
Freedomizer Radio, where freedomizers freedomize freedom.
And we're back. This is TigerLily, your show host for TigerLily's Freedom Roar on Freedomizer Radio. I have on the phone holding two people. One is he didn't give me permission to give his name, but he is out of San Antonio, and I want you to hear his story. He knows Antonio. Go on, Joe. Thank you for joining.
Yes, this is John Fodrell Sr. from San Antonio, Texas. I used to be the San Antonio telecom manager for the city years ago, and I had a discussion with the police chief last year. Half a dozen or more SAPD officers murdered Pierre Abernathy on his mama's front yard simply because he was going the wrong way on a highway, and they had a slow-speed chase. And then half a dozen cops and a canine dog murdered him on his mama's front yard last year. And the police chief would not talk to me and, covering the whole thing up. The main thing about the police chief, the police chief, his name was William McManus. he's been involved in fraud and a lot of other criminal activity. So there's a lot of us that he won't let in his office, and he's given in directions for everybody not to speak with us.
Wow. Well, you're from my old stomping grounds. I raised my children in Kerrville, Texas. Are you familiar? I know you're familiar with.
Oh, yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, and my son went to high school with some kids who are now police officers out there in Kerrville. And and he says, you know, Mom, they're the kids that couldn't get laid, basically. So what happens? This, you know, everybody says that we need to have a government to protect us from bad people, but what happens is that bad people are going to be attracted to these positions of power. So, and it sounds like you've had some good experience being able, the way that you were stonewalled, that you're being stonewalled, and they like to commit their crimes. They don't want any accountability. The camera is their worst nightmare. So thank you for talking about this. Is there anything else that's going on in San Antonio that I got to let my relatives know about?
Okay, the main thing is the city of San Antonio, the police chief and the city attorney signed 2 unconstitutional criminal trespass warnings, and the San Antonio Current is the first media outlet to actually start publicizing the fact that they violated the Constitution and the Texas Open Meetings Act, trying to keep everything quiet here in San Antonio. And it's finally starting to get some publicity. But 2 of us have been banned from going to public meetings or City Hall just because we know the questions to ask, and we're asking questions they don't want to answer. So we're talking about constitutional violations by our own police force.
Right. And so how do they ban you from going into the city council meetings?
They issued a written criminal trespass warning saying we're not allowed in there till further notice. No due process hearing, no time limit, no reason. Just you're not allowed in here.
Outrageous. That is just outrageous. So, and I know what you're talking about in Las Vegas. I've gone to, in the city of North Las Vegas, I've gone to their city council meetings twice to do some speaking, and my daughter was videotaping the first time, and she says, Mom, I felt so bad because what I was telling these people about these cops that just pounce on people for no good reason. She said, my daughter said she felt embarrassed for the council members that they put their head down. You know, it's like they couldn't face me as I tried to look at them in the eyes to tell them how immoral they are to be supporting something like this. In the city of North Las Vegas, in their courthouse, I call it the top secret court of non-record, because you're not even allowed a cell phone if you're a regular person. By regular person, I mean not part of the government. As if you're a worker for the state, for the government, for the city of North Las Vegas, you can come in with a cell phone or anything you want. Or if you're a lawyer, you can come in with a cell phone. But if you're a regular person, you cannot go into the entire courthouse with a cell phone or anything to hold these people accountable. The kind of crimes that I have seen by the marshals is just deplorable, because I'm not just talking about inside of the courtrooms where there's hearings. I can almost understand the need for some kind of privacy there if there's a witness that needs to be protected or something like that. I'm talking about you go in there and you want to pay $50 towards your speeding ticket or whatever. You get a number and you have to wait up to 3 hours inside of there without a cell phone, without any communication with anybody. There was an old man there who I saw him stand up, and a marshal by the last name of Gomez said to him, "Sir, you need to sit down." And the old man said, "Well, I got a really bad back and I've been sitting for a long time." And then the Marshal Gomez said, "Well, then I suggest you go outside and wait." And then the guy says, "But my number is up next." And Marshal Gomez says, "Well, then I suggest you sit down." And this could not be happening if there was any kind of accountability. Can you imagine something like that going viral on video, even on YouTube?
Well, Michael Cuellar is the other person. He was a procurement manager for the San Antonio Fire Department. I was the city's telecom manager, and both of us know where all the skeletons are. So this is why we both received criminal trespass warnings. We started to do an open records request for information that we know what to ask the right questions. And Michael said he was harassing the city because he filed 30 or so open records requests. Now, this is our right as citizens to ask, how are you spending our money? And we have a right to attend council meetings and object to how we're spending our money. Well, there's 2 criminal trespass warnings. One's been in effect for 3.5 years. Michael's been in effect since August. Now, we're finally getting some press with the San Antonio Current wrote a nice article saying this is unconstitutional, and we're getting some civil rights groups to look at it finally. But this is San Antonio, right down the road from where Antonio is. We have the same thing here. And like I said, the San Antonio Police Chief, William McManus, won't talk to anybody because we asked the right questions, and we're asking for a meeting to consider why they murdered Pierre Abernathy last year. Can you imagine?
And,
on his mama's front yard, 6 cops and a dog killed this man, and the police chief said, well, he was resisting arrest.
They will lie, and they're getting away with it. And why we, the sheeple, don't wake up to recognize what is going on right in front of us is beyond me. And thank you so much for being part of my radio show today, John. I'm going to put you on mute. And I do have a few more clips that I want to do. So do you have any closing statement that you'd like to make on the show live?
No. The one thing is I want to make people aware that if you stand up to the cops, last July 4th at 10 o'clock at night, the police sent 2 armed cops to my house to do a mental exam, and they got my wife and I out of bed. And after speaking to the police for about 2.5 hours, they both admitted, we were sent here to harass you, weren't we, sir? And I said, yes, you were.
Oh, my God.
Can you imagine? My wife just had neck surgery, but we were both taken out of bed at 10 o'clock at night because they were going to do a mental exam.
That's what happens when you start to stir up the pot.
The 2 policemen, Officer Bandowski wrote a report saying there's no mental health issues. This man is perfectly sane, and he has all the documentation to prove what he's saying. So he wrote a factual report. So there are some good cops out there. It's just the cops in power here in San Antonio taint everything else.
That's just horrific. Well, thank you so much for joining me and for tuning in. And I'm going to put you on mute.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Thank you for your time, and thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you for what you're doing. And ladies and gentlemen, what this man, John, is doing is really heroic beyond words. This is, when you start swatting at this, it's worse than swatting at a hornet's nest. It's like going inside of the lion's den almost. And this is dangerous, dangerous work. So what we need to do is always, always, always have a video camera with you. Do whatever it takes to stay safe. Unfortunately, in Texas, people are not allowed to open carry a firearm. In my case here, I'm living right now in Utah, and I do a lot of business in Las Vegas. Both of those states, Nevada and Utah, Arizona and New Mexico, they are open carry states, so I always carry my loaded .45, and that is a very great way to get to detract both cops and criminals, but I repeat myself. I wanted to talk, I do have one more person who wants to get on the line, but before that, I want to talk a little bit about gun rights, or maybe gun control. This whole thing about wanting to control guns, it's a fiction. There's no such thing. And let me tell you, when I'm open carrying my weapon, it is an absolutely effective tool to repel cops. So when I'm videotaping and I got my gun, they will think twice before approaching me because they're cowards. Somebody showed me this, I think it was my friend, David Stilwell, emailed me this video, and it's called No Guns for Negroes. Now, I have a good friend he goes by the name Rogue. He's been a motorcycle rights activist from way, way, way back. And he gave me some very good advice one day. He said, look to the history, look to what the African American community has learned, what civil rights, what civil disobedience has done. So in the spirit of looking at historically what has been done to our African American citizens, I want to just do a 1-minute clip of No Guns for Negroes. And if you go on YouTube.com, just do a YouTube search on No Guns for Negroes, and you can see the whole video. This is the first excerpt.
By definition, a slave is a person that is disarmed.
For too long, African Americans have been on the wrong side of the gun. From the racial motivation of slavery to the white supremacy movement to today's escalating black-on-black crime. The politically correct view that a disarmed black community is a safe community is only safe for those who seek control.
The black community went from being disarmed, being mistreated, being enslaved because of a lack of access to guns, ultimately went through a period of saying, aha, we have the right to bear arms, we've got to make sure it's respected, to a period where now the gun is the main tool of maintenance of the narco economy, which is the only economy in the African American community.
For people like Al Sharpton and Jesse Jackson and all of these liberal people, communists in my opinion, to want to take weapons away from everybody, the people they're hurting the most are the law-abiding black Americans, because there's more deaths and more shootings in Chicago, the place where our wonderful president, leader of the free world, is from. There are so many killings, but what isn't talked about nearly as often is how many cops are killing people, how many cops are killing, and if you're a black person or a brown person, your odds, or really a poor person, your odds of being killed are much greater. So this whole gun control thing, I think it's it's discrimination against women, it's discrimination against black people, it's discrimination against the weaker, the elder, the handicapped, for heaven's sakes. Look at what my guest just said, my caller just said from San Antonio about this young man who was executed in his front yard in San Antonio. And these cops will just call it officer safety? Are you kidding me? My goodness. Here's the second part of this No Guns for Negroes.
400 years of injustice. 400 years of being on the wrong side of the gun. It's time for change.
Why is the gangbanger who has the Saturday night special in his pocket given more rights than the average everyday citizen? Even though he was illegally armed, he has the right to defend himself, and you have not the ability to defend yourself.
So if the law says that I can't buy a certain gun, that if I can't carry a gun a certain way, I abide by that because I'm law-abiding. But the criminals are the ones that carry, buy any type of guns that they want, and are empowered.
The basic right of every American is the right to self-defense. Take away that right, and the individual is powerless.
It's not unusual for America in its long history to disarm or seek to disarm undesirable populations.
Gun control laws have kept African Americans in their place for hundreds of years.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, there's a new Negro in town, and that Negro is the taxpayer, because there are only two types of people in this country, taxpayers and tax users. And that goes right up to the President of the United States. What is he doing to contribute to the economy, to the wealth? No, he's a sponger. He sponges off of, he's a parasite. So is every congressional so-called elected official. This whole idea that we have any choice whatsoever in our destiny in the way that the government is even run is just smoke and mirrors. It's a lie. It's a fallacy. And for anybody to think that we have a voice with our vote, on the contrary, our vote is a vote for slavery. Anytime you go to the voting booth, it just means that you the voter, are enabling a system that is creating slavery, modern day slavery. So with that, let me bring on Regular Girl. She's been patiently waiting. Thank you, Regular Girl, for stopping by on TigerLily's Freedom Roar. You had a couple of comments you wanted to make, so go on ahead.
Well, thank you. First of all, that's the biggest comment that I want to make is I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart and soul. I understand that it's really dangerous work, and you have a tremendous amount of courage, and I'm speaking to everybody and anybody who has had the courage to take out a video camera. I've been saying jokingly, it's the new gun. It's not a joke, actually. And I have done a little bit of it, and I don't scare easily. But as I listen to you, it is frightening because I know, I grew up in this house similar to yours, and, it occurred to me as you were talking about that, I think that's where you got your courage from, people who grow up in that environment. If you think about it, that was your training right there. People like us who grew up in homes like that, we faced, they could have killed us. We knew that. We knew that as they were beating us up, that they could have killed us, and some children do die. So the training sort of goes there. My heart goes out to your brother who's in prison. I have a show on Blog Talk called the Orange Jumpsuit Show because we've got the wrong people in the orange jumpsuits. And the other comment I want to make, because I don't want to take up too much time, is that it has to do with the fact that the United States has more incarcerated persons than any other place on the planet. But here's something that I learned just about 6 months ago that really made a difference for me. Most prisons in the United States are privately owned. So I know that we're used to thinking of prison and being arrested as sort of a thing that has to do with justice. But I'm sort of venturing to say that once again, it has to do with money. The same way that if a child shows up to school, the government gets a certain amount of money for that person. Now, whether or not they spend that amount of money on that person for food and necessities, of course, we all know that gets crooked as well. But that they're privately owned, the prisons in this country. See, it's all about money again. And
yes,
I know because my family... Okay,
I'm sorry. I'm running out of time. I want to thank you for calling in. Absolutely. Follow the money, ladies and gentlemen. And that is pretty much the source of a lot of the issues that we've got going on. I want to close this show with a 5-minute clip from Antonio, which is the highlights of the radio show, that my interview with him. So with that, have a happy new year, everybody. Stay safe. Take your cameras with you at all times. And remember, I don't ride to be safe, I ride to be free. Have a good one.
So I graduated from West Point, the United States Military Academy, and I served 5 years in the military, including tours in Kosovo and Iraq. While I was in the military, I became Airborne Ranger qualified. I was a captain when I was in Iraq. I was the logistics officer of the largest brigade in the largest division in Iraq that first year, and I got to do some really great work to solve a lot of pretty serious supply issues, shortages that first year. I was awarded a Bronze Star for my time there. And then I got out and I went to Stanford University to get my Master's of Business Administration. And after that, I went to New York. I worked in finance. I ended up opening up my own private equity shop, a microcap focused on buying a company. And then I decided to become an entrepreneur and become an advocate for the homeschooling movement. I launched Beeler Education, and the entire time since I was in high school, I've been involved in numerous children's sort of efforts, whether it was coaching, mentoring, being on boards of nonprofits, helping kids with admissions into colleges. And so that really encompassed a large part of my life. And then I've been a part-time teacher as well here in Austin. So given all that and the fact that I'm not black or Hispanic and the fact that I don't have any sort of background as far as trouble with the law. From just a resume perspective, a lot of people would say he's sort of the all-American guy and he can do no wrong type person. Like, these people are corrupt, and they are willing to destroy the lives of peaceful people who have never hurt anyone in order to cover up the crimes of two violent cops who are on video, and where numerous witnesses identified them as aggressive felons. I have been trying to keep this, in the public's eye for the purpose of trying to get people to break away from the notion that cops aren't inherently a force for good or something that we need here in society, or to try to break down this notion that we need to support and defend our cops even when they commit violent crimes and even when they're destroying people's lives. We're trying to create a culture change where people will stand up and protect and serve one another, and they will oppose violence no matter where it comes from, to include from the police force. So that's why we've been continuing to push forward and keep trying to make it an issue, and that's why we had the Police Accountability Conference. That's why we do our cop watches, our Know Your Rights training, all these things we do, because we know that there are probably on a day-to-day basis here in this country hundreds, if not thousands, of people who are wrongfully arrested, thrown in jail, and had their lives upturned because of crooked criminal cops and a corrupt system. I know the story of Eric Scott, another West Pointer who was gunned down by police. His father, Bill Scott, has been fighting a very hard fight against the Las Vegas Police Department. Unfortunately, I think that the Las Vegas Police Department is a lot more powerful and a lot more corrupt than the Austin Police Department. So winning that fight is even more difficult than I think the fight will be in Austin. But you talked about how cops are not necessarily honorable and brave, and I think that that's absolutely true. And a lot of people like to use the generalization that cops are heroes, and I think that while no generalization is accurate, that generalization is certainly not accurate, and a far more accurate generalization is cops are cowards. Cops are cowards. Cops are the only people in society that have permission to go around killing unarmed people preemptively because they're scared of them, because of officer safety. No other profession in our nation, including our soldiers that fight overseas, are allowed to go around killing civilians because they're scared of them. No other profession in this country kills as many dogs on a daily basis because they're afraid of the dogs. We have postmen who go to houses every single day and get bit by cops all the time who don't go around shooting dogs. The cops in this country are cowards. They shoot people who are innocent because they're afraid of them, or at least they say that. They shoot dogs that are innocent because they are afraid of them all the time. It's disgusting. And very few cops actually fight real crime, because very few cops are willing to go out after the criminal cops who are destroying people's lives. So I want to stop hearing the refrain that cops are heroes, and I want to hear the refrain from most people in society that cops are cowards.
Freedomizer Radio, where freedomizers freedomize freedom.